Okay. So you just want to go category by category, and then we could each talk about our own and just go down through the whole list, or
Sure.
okay. So the first one is contact and engagement. The counselor was gentle, non-intrusive, compassionate, warm, and helpful.
So
Okay.
I think that you were definitely. The tone of your voice was very calming, um, and it was warm, and I felt a sense of helpfulness when we were talking, and like you wanting to connect me with other services and things like that.
And yeah, I think that you did a good job with that as well. I mean, you're very calm throughout the entire thing, and you were, comfortable with silences if I was, kind of just in my own little world, and I
Hmm.
think, yeah, definitely it felt like you were being gentle, non-intrusive, compassionate, helpful, and that's like the biggest thing that I think my character needed is that, he just needed like help, and you were very willing to offer that. So,
Right.
mhm.
Okay,
And
so
then
then safety and comfort. The counselor talked about safety and asked questions about the client's sense of safety. If the client felt unsafe, the counselor and client discussed options for helping the client feel safe. So I definitely felt like you definitely asked me if I was safe. And I'm pretty sure I told you that I was safe in the moment, especially being in the shelter. Um, just the only thing I was worried about is him finding me.
right. Yeah. And I think I probably could have like phrased things better or been like more clear with that, but I, yeah, I at least made the attempt. And then on my end, I think that like with David, if anything, he was just like a danger to himself, I guess you could say. I don't think
Hmm.
there was anything that was going on with him that would like cause him any, danger from like the outside.
Right,
So there was no need for you to talk about that much. But, when I did talk about self-harm or like maybe wanting to, not be here anymore, you definitely zeroed in on that and made sure that, I wasn't to the point where I was, taking active steps to like end my life or anything like that. So,
right. Yeah, yeah, because I remember you saying that you didn't have like a plan,
mhm,
but you just didn't, you felt hopeless. And then I did make sure that you had the crisis line just in case, you
mhm.
did feel like harming yourself at that point.
Right. But yeah, you didn't need to spend like a ton of time on it because I think it was pretty clear that I wasn't, you know, at that point. So that's
Right,
good.
right.
Okay. And then three, stabilization if necessary. So the counselor was able to help on the client and help the client become more emotionally stable. I think that your character, I mean, even though she had, just been through a lot, she didn't, at least to me, seem like she was like especially, but it could have also just been maybe that she was like kind of like shut down. Whereas um with my character, like I definitely got to the point where I was like very like worked up and I started to cry, and you did that breathing exercise with me, and I think
Right.
that was great because it kind of like brought me back to the present and out of like the hole. So that was really good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm sorry, I got distracted.
You're good.
Oh, and then so yeah, and then the stabilization for you, I know that you did talk about the breathing, but I pretty much told you like I felt like I was all right, but whatever you wanted to do, um, which I feel like you did ask me if I needed anything, and I said a drink. So I feel like, that would have helped regulate me in the moment to stabilize me at that moment if I needed.
Mhm. Yeah, and you asked me the same question, even though I didn't say that I needed anything, so that was good too.
Yeah. Okay, so information gathering, current needs and concerns. The counselor was able to ask about current needs and the concerns the client has. The counselor gathered enough information about these concerns. Um, I definitely feel like you gathered enough information. And I feel like it was hard for you with my concerns necessarily because some of them there wasn't anything that you could really do as far
Right.
as like worried about him following me or coming to me. But the things that you were able to help me with, you were willing to put those supports in.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you did a really good job with David with, the needs and concerns because I think we talked about a number of things from like employment to the making sure that I got someone to help me with like the custody issue and that I just wasn't like feeling, maybe like so alone too since I had like lost some of those like social supports like, through work. And so I
Mhm.
think you zeroed in on all of those things really well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So five is practical assistance. So the counselor was able to offer practical help to the client. And the client didn't have an answer, planned on how they could move forward. So I think again here, like I think four and five kind of go together. But
Yeah.
yeah, you did a really good job of like finding solutions, like getting me into contact with Joe, who could help me with employment, and other people with the custody, and perhaps even like a men's group. So yeah, great job there.
Thanks. Um, yeah, I think you did. I think you were helpful in that as well. Primarily getting me set up with like childcare.
Right.
So connection with social supports. The counselor discussed social support resources with the client. Client left session with an understanding of who he, she, they could talk to or go to get support for help. Um, yeah, I think you definitely helped me with that. I talked to you about my sister, and then we also talked about, the support groups within the shelter.
Mhm.
And you encouraged me to, reach out to them and talk to them more, especially with them being more understanding where I was coming from.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think we definitely did a good brainstorm with that. You did. You did really good with that.
Mhm. And yeah, I like with me, I know there's that one form that I could like fill out that like to help me get started. And I like how, you said that I could do it on my own, or if, I just didn't have the energy or wherewithal or whatever you want to call it, how you're willing to kind of fill that out with me, like in a following session. I think that was great
Hmm.
because like sometimes like, you're motivated in the session, but then like you kind of fall through the cracks, especially if you're feeling depressed and
Hmm.
unmotivated, like my character was. So I think that was a really good little detail there. And then yeah, again, like, mentioning someone by name, Joe, like a fellow man that I could talk to about, something that's going on. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I actually find that a lot with my clients. Like they are more inclined to fill out packets for services if they have somebody doing it with them. So.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense to me.
So information on coping support. I totally failed on this one. I did not do anything for you. Um, but I do feel like I did normalize the stress reactions for you. I
Hmm.
just didn't like identify any specific coping strategies that could be used. So that's something that I obviously would definitely need to work on. Um,
I think it's also just like, just from my perspective, like this is one of those things that is maybe a little bit different generally, like with men versus women. Like I think like with a lot of men, they don't even want to talk about like the coping supports. So like maybe even if you did kind of try to delve into that, they're just like, I don't want to talk about that. That's like peripheral. How do I fix my problems? How do I fix the things that like I know I need to do better at?
right.
So I think it was kind of natural in a way to like not be talking about that and to instead just focus on like, how do I keep my child? How do I find employment so that I
Right.
can support my child and like be useful? And so I really don't see it on your end as like this, like, oh, you failed to do this. It makes sense to me that we didn't talk about that, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, because there's not really much you can do to cope. But I
Right.
guess and on the other hand too, you're right as far as like I did give you the number too, which
Hmm.
is a I feel like that's a good coping strategy because
Right.
you felt alone, it
Yes.
seemed. So maybe that is your way of coping. But yeah,
Yeah.
you really needed action rather than
Yeah. And I think, yeah, you bring up a good point. I think that like one of the biggest things, like especially with men, is it's so easy for them to become isolated. My character probably wasn't isolated at all when he still had his job of 20 years. He probably knew those guys really well, and had some like strong social connections with them. But then like overnight that evaporated, and so I think like my character's biggest thing is trying to like get some of that social, connection back through other means. And we did
Mhm.
talk a lot about that. So
Yeah.
I think that that would definitely be coping there.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and then I know that we talked about for my character, we talked about journaling and we also talked about like um, doing the yoga again, and just, figuring out a way to be able to take time for myself so that I can utilize my coping strategies. So I really liked that. Um, I'm putting that more in the forefront of my head as the client that, I should take time for myself.
And you also made it easy because I forget exactly like how it was brought up, but like you just came out with like, oh yeah, I used to journal, I used to do yoga. So it was it was easy for me to
Well,
pick up on that and run with it.
I think it was a question that you asked that led me, I forget what the specific question was, but you asked me a
Mhm.
question that, like, I think you asked me what I do for myself. It wasn't it? It was something similar to that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you made it easy. So
And then the linkage with collaborative services, and how you talked about community services and resources. Um, I know that we talked about me as when I was the client to reach out to the that you were going to reach out to the domestic violence center, so that you were able to work with them to be able to help me. And that was really nice because I feel like um, having a lot of people in your corner is better than like, oh, I go to see this person and then I go to see this person and they don't know what I'm working on. And then they're all working on sometimes the same thing or things that are completely opposite. And it's like too much. So I really liked that you were going to reach out to them and get on like the same page.
yeah, because I definitely didn't want it to be a thing where like maybe like this sort of thing that your character was going through is so normalized that you just go back to that and like it's like nothing ever happened. It's like you never went to the shelter. And so I think
Right.
like I wanted to make sure, since like there was clearly like some abuse going on, that like someone else was connecting the people and reporting it, and it
Yes.
wasn't just going to be brushed aside because maybe for a week things with the partner got better. Like,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
yeah. And we already talked I already talked a bit about it, but again, I think you talked about linking me with, services for the employment and for, like the custody. And so again, that was all very good, to make sure that, I was getting like the resources that I needed to move forward and not feel so useless and not feel like, it shouldn't exist anymore. So
Mhm.
that was all great.
I think we did really good.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some other questions here.
Mhm.
Like what skills do you think were easy for you to demonstrate?
I think it was difficult for me in the beginning, but then like I can't think of a better term, but I kind of like entered your spirit, so to speak, of like, what you were going through. And I feel like halfway through, I, you know, was really able to understand like what you were going through, like what you might need, what would be like good to talk about. And so like it kind of like unfolded naturally.
Mhm.
But I don't know, skill wise, uh, I don't know. It's hard for me to identify skills. How about you? What do you think?
Well, first of all, before we move on to me, I want to tell you that I feel like one of the skills that you have is you're a really good listener and you were good at keeping that good tone, like the warmth and stuff that we had talked about earlier. I think that's a really good skill to hone in on. Because
Okay.
even if you're not telling me, like, or even if we're not talking about something like maybe you're not giving me the right information or the
Mhm.
information that I'm needing, having that warm tone was helpful enough because I felt like you were listening to me. So that's a good skill.
Right. Yeah, I do have to say, especially at this point, with like not knowing a whole lot, that is what I primarily like focus on. Like even if I'm
Mhm.
not saying the right words, I want to be the right like person for them
Right.
to be like talking to make them be calm, think lucidly about what's going on, how, we could work to like make things better. So I guess
Mhm.
that is my focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what do you think you did well?
Um, so for me, I think the body language, like picking up on some of like your body language as to like you weren't doing well in the moment, and then bringing in that breathing exercise. I feel
Hmm.
like I was really good at honing in on that skill of recognizing that, which is really important, especially with us being over like
Yeah,
telehealth right now, that technically.
for
Um,
sure.
so that's really important is to really, keep that eye contact and make sure that I am
Mhm.
noticing those things. So I think I did well on that.
Yeah, I totally agree because actually like the moment that I started to like feel like, kind of like out of control, like you asked to do the breathing exercise literally like 2 seconds later. Like
Yeah.
it's not like, I was feeling like that for like a minute before. You're just like, oh, maybe we should. It was right away. So you're
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, clued into exactly like how I was feeling and how I went from like kind of okay to not okay. And then we did that and I went back to like kind of okay. So
Right.
yeah.
What skills were difficult for you to demonstrate?
Um, I definitely had a hard time with like opening and like closing and then just like in general, like I guess like moving like fluidly like through the interaction, I'd say. Especially since like I said before, I feel like with your character situation, like at a woman's shelter, like it's very important for them to be sitting across from like a human being and not doing like a
Hmm.
telehealth. So yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely felt a bit lost, and there was even like a time at the end of the recording where I was just like, and that's that's not good. So yeah,
No, I think ending is always difficult. Um, because you want to also make sure that they're in a good space when you're ending.
yeah,
So I feel like that's just something that would come in time.
mhm,
But other than that, I disagree with you. I think you were fluid throughout the process. Like I didn't feel like we were like jumping around. Like I felt like it was all interconnected and I felt like we went smoothly through. But
okay.
um I'm not sure what was difficult for me. Um I think the main thing that was difficult was and I always find it difficult with a woman versus with a man. Because men they don't like feeling weak, especially in front of the opposite sex. I feel like that's even harder.
Mhm.
Um, so like I feel like it's a delicate situation with talking to a man, just to ensure that you're not emasculating them and but still at the same time being empathetic and helping them through the situation. So that's difficult. I'm used to working with mostly women. So that's definitely something that I need to work on is, you know, honing in on some skills with men in general.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think you did a good job, but like you said, it's just the very dynamic of like being female therapist with like a male client is just really hard. And like you said,
Hmm.
like finding that balance is very difficult. So
Yeah,
I still think you did well, but maybe it's just something that like maybe like every female therapist, like it wouldn't hurt to just like, think about that as something to get better at just because it is so hard.
right.
So,
Yeah. And maybe just like learning more skills and getting that comfortability too with,
right.
with that. So,
Yeah. But I still think you did well with it
well, thank you.
regardless. Mhm.
Okay. So if you were to redo this exercise again today, what might you do differently?
I mean, for me, it's definitely just uh yeah, finding like a good strategy for like wrapping up the session. Even if it's maybe like at this point, writing out a very general like script of like making sure I hit this, and this as far as like, okay, this is what we did today, maybe, and like this, if you want to meet with me again, like, and do you need anything else? Like, I think at this point, since I just don't have like any plan for it, it'd be good to like write up a plan, and then I'm sure eventually I wouldn't need that, but I
Hmm.
think that's what I would do differently is kind of like come up with a little bit of a script for starting and finishing.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would necessarily do a script, but yeah, like maybe recapping the
Yeah.
session. Yeah, and that
Yeah, more
that
of like a
helps.
bullet point list than a script, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well,
Mhm.
and so that's another thing. Like I typically take notes when I'm with a client.
Right.
So that kind of helps with remembering what all we went through, and especially when we go into the next session. Um, that way, like I know a plan of where we were and where we're going, type thing.
Right.
So that would also help you in the long run too.
Mhm.
Um, so honestly, I don't think I would do anything differently because I feel like counseling is what it is, and you are your authentic self while you're doing it, and it just comes out the way it comes out, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
as long as I'm helping somebody, I don't expect to be perfect with them. Just basically doing my best for them. That's all I. So I don't think I would do anything different at this point.
Cool.
So what do you think your current strengths or assets that you possess right now, and which help with effective crisis management?
I mean, with me, it's definitely just my tone and demeanor and calming presence. And, that's something even as just like a second semester student that I've already heard a bunch of times. So I think
Yeah.
that's my main thing,
Yeah.
even
No,
if I don't
I
have the other skills
completely
yet.
agree. I completely agree. Um, so I think for me, my strengths are is that I'm not fresh in doing this. So like I have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So I think that is my current strengths. I deal with crisis on a regular basis. I've taken lots of trainings and I've done a lot of education prior to coming into the counseling field because of my job. So I think that, I've honed in on a lot of skills. So that gives me a little bit of an advantage. Um, like I've also done psychological first aid trainings. So I kind of know what to do already. So,
Yeah, and it seemed like you were very comfortable even when I was like very upset. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
it was clear to me that like this is something that you'd like done before, and that like it wasn't frazzling you at all. You were just like, okay, let's do this. And
Right.
so yeah, I definitely felt that.
When you are experiencing a crisis, what do you want from the people who are trying to support you?
You want to go first?
Sure. I just want somebody to listen, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want them to try to fix it in that moment. Um, because I feel like a lot of counselors, when they first get into the field, they're like, okay, what can I do to fix you right now? That's not what somebody in crisis needs. What they need is a listening ear and then helping you as the client determine what the next steps are, not the counselor determining them for you. So that's what I would want is somebody to listen and help me navigate rather than doing it for me.
Yep. I think that's the correct answer. So I'm not gonna say, so I don't really have anything to add. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that especially when someone's going through something like really tough, the client needs to be kind of like directing like, what's going on, what they need and all of that. And the counselor is like there to help and, to assist, but they're not necessarily like, in control, so to speak. So
Right. Yeah.
well
Like
said.
Nobody in crisis would say, here, you should do this. No, that's not what I want to
Yeah,
hear.
no.
So,
Yep.
but overall, I think we did really well, both of us.
Mhm.
I'm really happy with what we did, and I think you're doing great. You'll do great.
Thanks. You don't need me to tell you that you're doing great because you're already living it, but keep it up.
I know. I wish, honestly, it's so frustrating because I wish that I could just, go and take the test and then be done with it.
I
But
know. Yeah. I I mean, even as someone who's starting out, I kind of feel that way. Like I feel very like alive and like with it, like when I'm even like doing things like this, but then just like writing the papers and whatnot. It's like
yeah,
just like but I know it's
right.
something we have to do. So
Absolutely. So, but thank you for working with me again. And I'm sure we have another project in the future. So,
I'm sure.
okay,
All
I'm
right.
gonna I'm gonna end the recording.
Okay.